Okay, hello and welcome everyone to the Beginners Coding Workshop. I can see everyone is already using the chat box and it is great to see. So the first thing I always like to do to start off one of these workshops is to ask where everyone is tuning in from. Your host today, myself and Yoni Levy next to me, we are based in Dublin, Ireland. We're very excited to be here, bringing you through your first website. So what we're going to do today is I'm interested to see where everyone's coming from. This workshop is held by Learning People in association with Code Institute. So we'll be taking you through building your first website. So we're very excited to get started on that. So I'm seeing some people saying no video or sound, says stream is offline. So if everyone can hear me, if you could just type yes into the chat box now, just so I'm sure we're all seeing the same signal. Okay, some people saying yes, some people saying no. I'm seeing lots of yeses. Okay. Yes. Okay, so what I'll say is if anyone, it'll be one of those funny things. If you can't hear me, just say hello. So I think everyone can hear me now. So if anyone is having any problems, just refresh the browser and I will type that into the chat box now. So I think everyone can hear me now. So if you could tell us where you're logging in from, that would be great. I'm hearing some people from Wales. I'm hearing some people from Italy. Would love to know where you're coming from. So we're going to get started here, but I'm interested to see where everyone is. I'm seeing someone from Swansea. So I would like to welcome you very much to this workshop. If you would like to tweet at us throughout the workshop, you can find us at TLP_tweets. And your workshop notes, I'm going to put this link into the chat. It's bit.ly/ well, I actually can't pronounce that. I'm just going to put that in the chat. So there's labs we'll be going through on this workshop, so you'll be able to find those labs there. So some introductions. My name is Owen O'Neill, and Yoni Levy is next to me. And we also have Ben Allwright from the Learning People who will be in on the chat. Happy to answer any questions that you have. I will also be on the chat, and Yoni will be bringing you through the workshop notes. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to create your very first website in under an hour. That's the goal we're going to strive for. Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't, but hopefully today we will be able to do it. So the reason we're here today is this thing called the global skills shortage. And basically this graph sort of tells you everything you need to know. The red line there is the number of available coding jobs. And this blue line is the number of computer science graduates that are available to fill it. So this thing called the global skills shortage has caused a lot of companies to say, we really need coders, and a lot of people to say, hey, coding is a really great career to get into. And that's why we're here today. One of the biggest questions we always get is actually this one, how do I know if coding is for me? So we put this workshop on to give you a taste of coding, to let you see what it looks like, what it's like, see if it's something that's of interest to you. So the goal is to show you what's involved in building a simple website and answer any questions that you have about coding. So one of the things we're going to do is, for some people, once we get to the end of the workshop, they tend to say, actually, I'm really interested in this. I'd love to hear more. So if you feel that the hour we have spent with you has been worth your time, we're going to share an offer on a course that we run with Learning People. And if that's of interest, we'll share it. And if it's not, I guess we won't. That's usually the rule. That's the deal we always make. So what I'm going to say, we're going to kick into the workshop now. For distractions, if you have Gmail open, Facebook open, Twitter, your phone, if it's not on silent yet, the workshop tends to move quite quick, and it can be really easy to get left behind if you're checking Facebook for just that 30 seconds. So please close those down because we've so much to learn, and it's very easy to get distracted and suddenly be a couple of seconds behind, which is a lot. So the other thing is we'll talk a little bit about split screen, just so it's easier for you to follow the notes. We also have a competition at the end. It should be fun. Stick around to the end. It's really going to be worth your while. And we'll share more details on that. But there is a competition at the end of this. And the workshop labs, I'm going to share that in the chat now, just in case anyone wasn't able to get those. So I'm going to hand you over to Yoni Levy. So now, just so you know, Yoni worked at Google before moving to Code Institute. He's been a professional developer for 7 years, so you're in very good hands. The only bad thing I can say about Yoni is he has a bit of a cold tonight, but for the most part, I think he's at 80%, maybe 90. So I'm going to hand it over to Yoni, and he'll take it from here.
Cool. Thank you, Owen. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. In this workshop, we're going to discuss coding. And before we get started, let's just discuss that word a bit. So what is code? As you know, software is eating the world. Pretty much every job you do these days, everything you touch is controlled by software, by computer programs. And the way computer programs are created are through the use of code. Code means that you write down instructions for the computer to do to force your will upon the computer. There are different coding languages or programming languages that you can use. Each of it has its own strengths and weaknesses. And in this workshop, we'll be showing you how to use 3 specific languages that are used on the web. And that's it. That's what I want to say. I only just add that coding is fun, but hard. It's especially hard to get started because you don't yet know all of those special words and special invocations. I really like the metaphor of thinking of code as doing spells. So just like in Harry Potter, you have to say a spell a specific way. You have to say exactly, I don't know, like Alohomora to make something levitate. Mm-hmm. Then in code, you have to write an instruction for the computer in exactly a specific way. And if you do it even slightly differently, if you have a typo, then it doesn't work. Or even worse, it could work, but do something completely different than what you expected. So it's up to you to try to be very careful and don't get frustrated. I will help you throughout the process. Just make sure you're trying to type exactly the way I'm typing all of the comments. Cool, so let's get started. What we're going to do here is an introduction to front-end development. There are several different kinds of applications you create, or several parts of a software system. And the front-end part is the part of the application or the website that's directly in front of the user. So when you have a software system, the front end is everything that the user directly sees or hears or touches, anything that the user directly interacts with. And that's probably the most interesting part of creating software. That puts you directly there to help the user achieve their purposes. So that's what we'll be focusing on today. And specifically, what we'll be doing today is creating the front end for a web application. So rather than creating a mobile application for an iPhone or Android, or creating a desktop application for Windows or for Mac, we'll be creating a web application that can run on a web browser and be available to users on any kind of device. To create a web application, you will need to be familiar with these 3 very specific languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we'll go through all of them today. Just as a general introduction, HTML, standing for Hypertext Markup Language, is the language that we'll use to create all our content in. So we'll be writing down content, again, text, images, videos, buttons, etc. And HTML is the language which wraps this content and signifies for each part of the content what kind of content it should be. And we'll see that in a moment. Then we'll have CSS, cascading style sheets, which is the language used to add styling to HTML. So by itself, HTML is very bare. It doesn't say how things should be presented. But CSS tells the computer how to display it, what colors to use, what sizes to use, what fonts to use, etc., to make it look nice, make it look good. And the last language we'll touch is JavaScript, which is used to add interactivity to our website. So that's the language we'll use to take input from the user and handle those inputs to change our website accordingly. Okay. So let's get started with HTML. HTML is a language composed entirely out of pieces known as elements. So we have an example of an element here on this page. And you can see on the right that it's split into 3 parts. So each element has a content, in this case, a paragraph. And on both sides of the content, we have a start tag and an end tag. These have a type. In this case, the type is P. And they are surrounded by angle brackets. So looking here, we have an start tag of type P. Then we have the contents, and then we have an end tag, which is exactly like the start tag, but preceded with a slash before the tag type. And the way the computer sees this is that the computer starts reading it from left to right, starting from, oh, okay, so I'm going to have a P element. Then it goes a bit to the right, sees, oh, okay, so the contents of this P element is going to be a paragraph. And then reaching the end tag, the computer says to itself, and I really like this kind of thing of imagining what the computer sees. So the computer then sees this and says, oh, okay, so I'm done with this P element and I can move on to my other stuff for today. So this is the theory. And now let's get started with the workshop itself. I will be creating a website, a very basic one, that will use all of the components that I'll be showing you. And I want to offer you a chance to follow me in real time. We've asked you before to install a piece of software called Sublime.
Yeah, there's a link in the chat there that I've just put in. It's to Sublime Text 3. Now, hopefully you've had a chance to install it. If not, you will be able to install it now. And you could use Notepad if you weren't able to. It's a little bit more manual, but it is possible.
Yes. So
yeah, we will be using Sublime. So if you don't have it installed yet, I would strongly encourage you to install it. It's a very small download. It's about 7 megabytes. So it should be very easy to install. And if you install it in the next 2 minutes, you should definitely be able to catch up.
Hopefully, yeah. So this is what Sublime looks like. It's a text editor, just like Notepad, but it's a bit smarter. It looks better, and it will help us automatically complete some of the commands that we'll be using. So this is what I recommend. So I suggest that you follow me and do create the code that I'll be creating. But if for some reason you have any technical difficulties or you find yourself not keeping up to my pace, that's completely okay. You can just follow along the video, just watch this, and try doing this yourself after the session. So don't worry at all. You'll also have access to a recording.
Absolutely. So there'll be a recording for you to go through. So if you feel you're falling behind, don't worry about that. One of the things we say to all our students is we have this rule. It's called the 30% rule. And the idea is that if you're in our classroom or you're studying in the online, if you understand 30% of what is going on in any given lesson, you're doing really, really well. So if you find at any point that you're falling behind, that's okay. There'll be a recording that you can go through at your own pace sent out to you tomorrow. So I'm also going to just ask a quick poll just to get a gauge of the room, just get a feel for who is online with us. I'm just going to ask, have you ever done coding before? And I'm just going to start that poll out. So just answer yes or no, just so we have an idea of the kind of audience we're working with a little bit. Yoni, over to you again.
Okay, cool. So once you've installed Sublime Text, open it. You'll have this window in front of you. It should work pretty much the same whether you're using Windows or Mac or Linux. And that's it. So you have this open in front of you. I'll be using keyboard shortcuts a lot, and that's what I recommend that you do. But you can always use just the menu commands instead. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new file. I'll use Control-N to create the file. And you see that I've got untitled here. You can equivalently just do File, New File. And immediately, once I've created the file, I will go ahead and save it. I'll use Control-S to do so. Okay, and I'll go to my desktop. It can be wherever, but I usually use the desktop for this sort of thing. And I will name the file hello.html. The hello part is whatever you want it to be, but the .html part is really important. So it has to be exactly .html, the extension of the file, for Sublime to recognize it and for the browser to recognize it.
Exactly. And just if you're curious about the results of the poll, Yoni, it was pretty much 50-50, yes and no. So have they ever done any coding before? Lots of people saying, I've done a little bit of text editing, but that's kind of the shakedown.
Cool. Okay. So I hope for those of you who have coded before that you'll enjoy this and you won't find it too boring. And for those who haven't coded before, then I hope this will be the first time out of many.
Get ready to see some magic.
Yeah, let's try doing some magic. Cool. So I've saved this empty file as hello.html. And Sublime automatically noticed that and put HTML here at the bottom, which means that it knows I'm going to create HTML. And let's go ahead and create our first element. So we'll use angle braces, P, close the angle braces. So this means that I'm going to start an element of type P, which stands for paragraph. And as the contents, we'll put hello world. the idea is that whenever we learn a new coding language, we always want to use that language to put on the screen the words "Hello World." And by doing this "Hello World" program, in a sense, we can say that we are now programmers of that language. So once you get "Hello World" to show up on your screen, you can say that you have programmed in HTML.
This is actually like a huge deal in the coding world. This is like the entry point for pretty much everyone who does HTML or any programming language. So once you've done this, you can say you've coded.
Yes.
It might be to a very basic level, but you've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, each element has to have a start tag, that's the P, a content, hello world, and then a closing tag, which is exactly the same as the start tag, but with a slash. And Sublime is really nice here. So once I click slash, it would automatically complete the rest. It added the P and the angle bracket. Now I'll save it. And nothing happened, of course. I just saved the text file. Why should something happen? What I want to happen is that I want to now load this document, this HTML file, in a browser. Okay, what I'll do is I'll right-click an empty space in Sublime and click the Open in Browser option. Okay, this will open a browser that will read my file and run the code that I've written. Okay, I opened it here. I'll just move it into its own window. Okay, and Owen mentioned splitting the screen. So to make it comfortable for me, I will put this window on the right part of my screen. I will just drag it with the mouse to the right, and I will go back to Sublime. Sorry, this is Sublime, and I will put this on the left. So now I have Sublime on the left and the browser on the right.
So the interesting thing about this is on the left-hand side, you see Sublime Text. This is kind of what the computer sees. On the right-hand side, you have what the user sees or what the human sees. So this is kind of the setup that programmers tend to work in. On the left-hand side, they tell the computer what to do. And on the right-hand side, they make sure that the computer has interpreted those instructions correctly and delivered them to the user.
Absolutely. When we're writing code, we will call this part the source. So this is the source or the source code of what we have on the right. So what happened? We loaded this in the browser. You can see here the address that it opened that file from my desktop. And it's displayed the contents. So that's all it did. This might be boring, but this is the basics of all coding. And I want to make sure that everyone who wants to follow the workshop has this working for you. You have here on the left, P, hello world, P. Okay, and here you have just the content without the P. So the P, this element type instructed the browser that the content here should be displayed on its own paragraph. Let's see what this means. So let's say I want to add a bit more text here. I'll add the text. We're doing a Code Institute webinar. And every time I make a change, I will save the source. I will click Control S or Command S if you're on a Mac, or equivalently just File Save. But usually I don't want to use my mouse, so I'll just use the keyboard. And then once I've saved it, I will go to the browser and refresh it. I will be using Control R, but you can also use this button. If you're using Chrome, it's the same on pretty much every browser. And we see that I got the same content here as here. So this is not interesting in itself. What's interesting is that if I now break it into a new line, I can style my source code any way I want. So usually I would be putting the element start tags and the end tags on their own lines and putting the content further to the right. This is called indentation. So I'm indenting the content of an element to the right of where the tags are, just to make it clear for me that the content is inside of these tags. Okay, so I have P, and then I have two parts of the content. I'll save this and refresh. And now you see that nothing changed. So this is part of how the code works. I've told the browser that all of this is a single paragraph, and it shows it as a single paragraph, regardless of whether I put it on its own line. If I wanted this to be a separate paragraph, I would need to cut this. I'm using Control X and open a new P element, paste it back in, close the element, save it, refresh. And now the browser knows that these two should be separate paragraphs. So I hope this makes sense. This is the basics of creating HTML code. Now let's take a look at something a bit less basic. Going back to the slides.
Okay, great. And if anyone is having any trouble displaying Hello World, usually, I tell you what, 90% of the time, it's because you haven't saved the file as a .html. And that's pretty much the main ones that would cause any troubles. So if that is the case, I would just make sure it's saved as .html. And if you're not able to find it, there will be a recording. So we'll crack on, Yoni, because I think the majority of people are pretty happy with where we are.
Yeah, if you have any technical problems, you can write questions in the chat, and we'll try to help you in real time. But don't worry about that too much. Just try to keep up. Okay, so going back to the slides, that was how we create elements. And the interesting part of HTML comes from the fact that elements can live inside one another. So rather than only have P elements one after the other, we can also have, for example, in this case, an EM element inside of a P element. So here we have this P starting tag. It has a piece of content, a paragraph, and it also has another piece of content, which itself is an element of type EM, where EM stands for emphasis. And it itself has the content with emphasis. Okay, to get a bit clearer understanding of this, let's go to the right side of this slide and look at this diagram. So this thing, which is what we call a tree diagram, similar to what you would have in family tree, is a visual way of looking at this. So at the top, we have the parent, in this case, a P element, and the parent has two children, one of which is just a regular piece of content, and the other child is an EM element, which itself has as a child the words with emphasis. Okay, let's try this out in our file. So let's say that instead of just having regular hello world, I'll move this to its own line so it'll be clear, and I'll wrap this word world in an EM element. Okay, I'll save this and refresh. Take a look at the word world here. And see that after I've saved and refreshed, this word had become italicized. So by default, when you put something in an EM tag, the browser knows to treat that as a special emphasized word and will italicize it.
It used to be just I as a tag, but then they changed it to EM because it made more sense, I guess.
It does make more sense. I is still supported. So in older versions of HTML, they used to encourage using I, and that does the same. And in HTML5, the encouragement is to use emphasis, where the idea with HTML5 is to make this more semantic. So instead of focusing on the effect, which is italicizing, they focus on the meaning of using that markup. So these tags, these are called markup. This is what we're doing in HTML. We're marking parts of our content with special meaning. And by using EM rather than I, we're attaching the meaning of emphasizing this part rather than what to do with it. And then we'll see that using CSS, we can actually change the styling applied to different kinds of text. So that, for instance, in one of our websites, we could change the EM tag to do something else rather than emphasizing. Maybe we would want to color all emphasized parts in purple. Why not? So this is how we have elements inside one another. Let's take a look at something else. So what we've done so far is just have isolated elements, but actually this is cheating. What I've shown you here, this P and EM and P, this is just a fragment of HTML. The browser will use this, will display it nicely, but it's not what's known as valid HTML. Essentially, to make our HTML valid, we have to have a few more elements. We have to have an element named HTML at the most outer part of our document. And inside of it, we have to have two additional elements, one named head and the other named body. So looking at the diagram here, so we have HTML at the top, we have body here as the second child, and the body element contains all of our other elements. So this is essentially all of the content we've created so far. And we also have this special head element, which is used to describe the document. So this will have some special tags which are not part of the content, but are useful to contain what's known as metadata, so data about the document. And the main part is probably the title, which we'll see in a second. So if we want to create valid HTML, what we'll do is cut all of this. I'm using Control X. And because I have Sublime, and Sublime is so wonderful, I can just start typing the start tag HTML. You can see here that Sublime recognized that I'm typing this tag, and now use the tab button on my keyboard to automatically complete it into the full structure of valid HTML. Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so now that I have this HTML structure, I'll paste all my content back in, put it here in the body, and I'll indent it to the right to make it clear that all of this is inside the body. And I'll save it, and I'll refresh, and nothing changed, but now this is valid. What this means is that when I'm using valid HTML, I am sure that all of the browsers will know exactly what I mean and will treat my document as I want it to be treated. It worked before I had valid HTML because browsers are actually very forgiving. And even if you do any sort of mistake and you forget any part, it will try to guess what you meant and will do whatever it can to make it work. But it might guess something differently, and different browsers might treat your code a bit differently. So to make sure that all of our browsers treat our code well, we will always want to have HTML and head and body elements. And also here at the top, we have this doctype HTML element, which was automatically created by Sublime. And this is just a way to signify that the document is a document of type HTML5, which means it supports all of the latest HTML features. Also, you might have noticed that I got this nice pop-up. I've got this because I'm using a new computer with a new version of Sublime, which is unregistered yet. Sublime asks you to pay it if you're gonna use it continuously, but you don't have to.
For this workshop, definitely, if that pop-up comes up, and it probably will, just hit cancel. There's no need to purchase the copy if you're just trying out coding.
Yeah, so you can just click cancel as many times as you want. It might nag you, like every few times you save, it will nag you, but don't worry about that. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, so now I have valid HTML, and I also got this empty title tag in the head part. Let's see what happens when I change it. Let's say that I want our file, our document, our web page to have a title. Let's name it Hello to Coding, which is kind of what we're doing. I'll save this. And once I refresh, what will change is this tab title. So by default, it just showed me the name of the file. But now when I refresh, it changes to the title that I gave it. So I think this is really cool. So we created a document named Hello to Coding. We gave it some content. For now, we've only used a couple of basic content tags. So we've used P and M. Mm-hmm. Let's see a few other types of elements. Okay. Another very common element type is a heading, right? So sometimes you don't want to just write paragraph text. You also want to give it titles. So, and I'm speaking about titles for the content, not for the document itself. These in HTML come in 6 different sizes: H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6, where the bigger the number, the smaller the heading. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. Let's say we want to give a big heading here, a big title to our content. So I'll use, let's say, H3, okay? And inside of it, I'll write front-end coding webinar. I'll add a closing tag, which automatically completes to H3.
Yoni isn't actually an extremely fast typer. This is why we recommend using Sublime over Notepad. Sublime will actually complete the tag for you because it's smart, and it'll just say, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to close that tag, so let me help you out there.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
Yeah, it's really useful. It can autocomplete tons of stuff, and you can even control it yourself. So once you get used to Sublime, you can add some autocompletions to do your favorite pieces of content for you automatically. Okay, so let's see what it did. So I'm going to refresh the browser. And we'll see that I got this nice heading here. It's bigger than the rest of the text. It's blacker. It's kind of bold. And this is just an H3. Let's see what happens if I change it to a larger heading, such as H1. Okay, so I'm going to change the start tag, and I need to change the end tag accordingly. Okay, I'll save and refresh, and now I have a very big heading. Cool? I think it's cool. So we've seen the P element and the heading elements. These two kinds of elements are what known as block elements. So these are elements that take up a large amount of space on the document and are intended to always start on a new line. And in addition, we also have what's known as inline elements, and we've already seen one of them, the M element, EM. Let's see another one. So we have an element named strong, which is used to signify that a piece of text is particularly important, similar to what the EM element does. So let's say we want to change this EM to a strong. I'll change it here, and I'll change it here. We always have to match. Save, refresh, and note this word. Okay, so instead of being italicized, it's now bold. This is what strong does by default. And if we want, we can change that with CSS to do something else. And as we mentioned, we can have elements inside of elements to combine all of their features. So we can actually have an EM tag inside of the strong tag. And that would mean that this piece of content is both bold and italicized, which I think is kind of impressive.
Yeah, it's cool. You got to remember with HTML that it was originally put together in order to share documents across the web. I suppose it wasn't really called the web back then. But what they did is they looked towards newspapers to try and understand what's the best way to do this. So that's why there's headings, there's paragraphs, there's bold, there's italics, because all they wanted to do originally was share documents. But then people said, you know what, we could probably share cat pictures. And that's when the internet really exploded. So, Yoni.
Well, a cat picture is also kind of a document.
That's true. It's a very important business document. I always have a cat picture in my business briefcase, if I'm being honest.
Once you're creating a portfolio of all of your work, you should definitely have a few sites that are just cat pictures. That will show your employers that you're serious.
Exactly. That's how you got into Google, right?
Yeah. And not just domestic cats, like tigers and leopards as well. Yeah.
As long as it's something in the feline therapy. Right.
Cool. So let me show you something else. So I've mentioned that elements have a start tag, and the start tag has just the name of the type of element. But actually, start tags can also have something else, some additional pieces of data, and these are known as attributes. Okay, there are many different kinds of attributes. Some of them are optional, while others are required. So there are kinds of elements which just wouldn't work without an attribute. And the way this always works is that inside of the start tag, you will put the name of the attribute, in this case, in this example, class, and then equals, and inside of quotes, the value of the attribute. So in this case, we have a P element, a paragraph, with an attribute of name class and value special. I'm not going to go into what class does yet, but I'm going to immediately move on to the most interesting part, the kind of element we have, which is the A element.
This was the game changer.
This was the game changer.
This is the start of the internet.
Of the web.
Of the web.
Yeah, the internet actually exists starting from the late 60s. But the internet, which was invented in 1991 by Tim Berners-Lee, has this as its main component. So the web allows us to create documents which link to any other document on this newly invented thing called the web. And you know these as links, but actually the technical term is anchor, used through an A tag. And what this does is that you can choose a piece of your document, any part of the content, and wrap it with an A element to say that this piece of content is an anchor that once clicked will take you anywhere else on the web to some different document, a different resource, possibly a cat picture, anywhere at all. So this is kind of the big part of the invention of the web. We had systems before that allowed linking inside of a piece of software. But the big thing about the web is that it allows us to link between documents owned by completely different companies in different parts of the world without having any other relationship between them. And the way this works is that in the start tag of an A element, we have to add an attribute named href, which stands for hypertext reference. And in the value, put in the URL, the address of where we want this link to go. So let's see what this looks like. We have here in our content the words Code Institute, the name of our institute. And it's convention on the web, then when you have a name of something, of some place, it becomes a link. Okay, so let's create a link that would point to the Code Institute website. I'll wrap the content Code Institute in an A tag. Okay, start tag and end tag. I'll save, I'll refresh, and nothing at all will happen. Because, as I mentioned, an A element has a mandatory attribute called href. So I'll add that now. href equals, and here I'll type in the address for Code Institute's website, which is http://codeinstitute.net, and I'll close the quotes. HTTP is also part of the invention of the web. This stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and all websites start with HTTP. So this is just something we need to have. And then this is the actual name of the website. Okay, so I'll save this, I'll refresh, and now you can see that this piece of content got an underline, and when I hover over it, my mouse becomes this nice hand cursor, and when I click it, the magic happens, and I'm transported sort of magically from the website I was on to the Code Institute website. Actually, this is not what I wanted. What I wanted, and I've gone back, is for a user to be able to go to Code Institute website, but not leave the website that I'm building, right? Because I want users to stay on my website as well. So for that, I'll use another special attribute called target, and I'll set its value to be equal to _blank. And what this means is that when a user clicks this link, they should be transported to this new website, but it should happen in a new tab rather than taking users away from my site. So they can enjoy both using my application and Code Institute's website. Cool. Are you excited about this?
I'm excited. I tell you what, I'm gonna load up a poll. Do you think hyperlinks are cool?
I suppose some of you were born after 1991, so
you might be super used to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But if you think about it, really, this is the one thing that allows everything on the internet to work. This is the thing that the internet hinges upon. And if we didn't have this, we really wouldn't have anything. So I'm seeing 97% yes and 3% no. So 3% are just saying, you know what, hyperlinks, lame. Seen them loads. I know what they do. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, that's okay too. Yeah, that's what makes it such a great invention, because it's now so obvious, right? But it wasn't obvious once upon a time. It really took a long while from the invention of the internet until this was invented, because it was hard to think of this kind of system where anything can connect to anything else, and they don't have to decide like beforehand on whether they allow this kind of connection or not. Anyone can link to anything. This is, I just find it amazing, like thinking of what the world was like before. I was born into a world where we didn't have this. Cool. So let me show you another neat type of element, and this is the image element. So until now, we only had text. But of course, the web is not just about text. It has lots of other types of media. And the second most important piece of media is images. So to create images in our website, we will use this element with the name img. This is a very special kind of element in the sense that it doesn't have any content. So there are a few such elements that only have the start tag, and that's it. To have the content, the image tag has to have the src attribute to point it to the source of where the image should come from. And it would also have another special attribute, the alt attribute for alternative, which provides a description, textual description of what the image is about. And this is used for special browsers mostly for browsers used by blind people or visually impaired people who cannot see the image but would still like to know what it's about. So for them, we add a text describing the image in an alt attribute. So let's see what this looks like. So after our paragraph, let's add this image element. Okay, and that's it. Okay, no closing tag, no content. And as the source attribute, let's add logo for Code Institute. I'll just go to the Code Institute website, which I already have open. Here at the top, I have the logo. I'll right-click it and choose Copy Image Address. This will put in my clipboard the full path to that image. Okay, I'll put that as the value. Okay, you can see it also starts with HTTP, and that has some long path ending with a PNG, which is kind of image. So this is the source, and I'll add an alt attribute to say that this is the Code Institute logo. Okay, so this is just be nice to others and make my website accessible. Okay, I'll refresh the page, and I'll see that I have the picture. So this is another great use of having the web as an open system. So just as we can link to anything on the web, we can also directly display parts of other web pages and part of our page. And to make it even nicer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this A element with the image element. So instead of having the text here, Code Institute, as part of the content of the A element, I will instead have the image. I think that would be nicer for our users, because the logo already has the text, so why do both? Okay, I've put the image element inside of the A element inside of the paragraph. Okay, so this is combining all the things we've learned so far. Save it, refresh, and now as part of this paragraph, I have the image, and the image is clickable. Okay, so this is a link leading to the Code Institute website. Do we have any interesting questions, Owen?
We've had a lot of questions that I've been covering off in the chat box, but for the most part, we've been okay.
Cool.
There was one question there. How long would it take to master this? And I said a lifetime, but probably considerably less if you were quite dedicated. I mean, to master something is like a really ambitious goal. Like that's being like one of the best in the world. But to be good enough to code a website, what would you say?
Well, we teach that to our classroom students in 4 weeks, right? After 4 weeks of learning front-end technologies, they create quite good websites. And they get jobs as front-end developers based on that. So,
okay, cool.
There's
lots of different ways to get there. But to create a website with the right instruction, 4 weeks. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. It's all about having the passion to learn. So if this is something that you're interested in and you want to put the time into, then by studying 4 weeks of full 8-hour days, you will be able to do something quite neat, quite professional. And of course, afterwards, then there's an endless sea of additional technologies that you can use to improve what you're creating. Okay, to wrap up the HTML section, I want to show you another kind of elements, and I'll just go through this very quickly. Until now, we've only had elements for single parts of content, but we also have elements which are used to contain multiple pieces of content. And the best known ones are lists. So HTML supports 2 types of lists, ordered lists and unordered lists. Ordered lists have the OL tag, and unordered lists use the UL tag. So let's see what that works like. So let's say here that inside the paragraph, I'll add the sentence. In this workshop, we're learning about, okay, and a colon. And afterwards, I want to describe all the languages that we're going to learn. So I'll create a list of UL, okay, unordered list. Immediately, I'll close it, so I'll remember that it needs to be closed. And inside of the UL element, I'll use LI elements. These stand for list item. And I'll create 3 of these. So I'll have the item HTML, item CSS, and the item JavaScript. Okay, so let's see what this does. Okay, I've saved. I'll refresh. Okay, I changed the paragraph here. And here below it, this is the unordered list I created. So you can see that in an unordered list, by default, I have these nice bullet points. And if I want to order them, so let's say that I actually want my users, you guys, to learn HTML first and then CSS and then JavaScript, then I'll change the UL to OL, both in the start tag and the end tag. And now these will become numbers. So this is cool. And at this point, we've finished our introduction to HTML, and we're ready to move to the second part, the CSS. CSS, again, cascading style sheets, is a whole different language, which is combined with HTML, but uses a different syntax. Rather than elements like in HTML, CSS is constructed out of rules. And here in this slide, I have three examples of rules. Each rule looks like this, and it actually has two parts. Okay, so the first part is the selector. The selector says to which elements on a page this rule should be applied. In this case, it should be applied to all P elements, to all paragraphs. And the second part is a list of declarations wrapped in curly braces. Always remember the curly braces. We can have as many of these declarations that we want to define different pieces of styling for all of the elements matching our selector. And each declaration has two parts. So it has the property, which is the thing that we want to style, in this case, the color, and then a colon, then the value. So this is the value that we want to give the property. In this case, we want the color to be teal. And at the end of each declaration, we want to have a semicolon to say that this is the end of the declaration. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so going back to our HTML, let's add some CSS. In many cases, CSS would go into its own file. It would be a file named something.css. But in other cases, we can just put it directly into HTML. And the place it would go is not the body, because the body is just the content. Instead, the CSS would go into the head of the document, right? The description about how the document should be like. Okay, so I'll add a new kind of tag called style. Okay, as usual, I'll immediately close it so I don't forget. And inside of this element, I'll start writing CSS code. CSS code, as I mentioned, always starts with a selector. In this case, let's select the entire body of our element, of our code. Okay, so I'm selecting here this element, the body. I'll open curly braces. I close the curly braces to not forget. And inside of this, I'll add some declarations. So first of all, let's change the font family for our website. I'll use the font family property, colon, and the new value will be Arial. By default, all websites are styled by the browser using the Times New Roman font, but let's say that it's kind of boring. So let's change it to something a bit nicer, also boring, but a bit nicer, such as Arial. Okay, so I've saved, I refresh, and everything changed to Arial. Let's try something else. The content we have here is hugging the left side of the window. And this is a bit annoying, right? Let's see if we can make it look a bit nicer. Let's change the width of the whole thing to take up 80% of the window size, okay? So the property width will now have the value 80%. I'll save it, I'll refresh, and nothing will happen, except that you see a bit of more spacing here on the right. So by default, it just put all of the content on the left, which is not what I wanted. So I'll add another property named margin, and I'll set that to auto. And that means that I will have automatic margins on both sides of our document. And now when I refresh, I see that our content is styled nicely in the middle. Cool, okay.
Cool. Yeah,
it's still kind of ugly, but we'll be improving that.
It's still ugly, but we're only showing sort of the basics of HTML and CSS. And I just want to say again, as a reminder, everyone who's watching, if you're understanding 30% of what's going on, you're doing really, really well. No one expects that you walk away with 100% understanding if this is your first run through. So just keep that in mind. Don't beat yourself up. We're all new to something at some stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I just want to show you is the kind of power you get from using these technologies. I'm showing you a few different kinds of properties in CSS. I obviously cannot go through all of them because there are hundreds of different properties in CSS. There are dozens of HTML elements, and I'm showing you just the most interesting ones. And you will, if you're interested, then I hope you'll want to learn more about it later. So just to get you kind of psyched up about this. So I've added this styling rule to the body. What does that mean? So actually, by setting this rule on the body, it doesn't just affect the body element, right? It doesn't just affect this. It actually is inherited by all of the parts of the document, all of the elements inside of the body. Okay? So looking at our code, so these three properties, this rule is now applied to the body and the H1 element and the P and the list and everything inside of it. So the font family changed for everything and the total width changed for everything. But sometimes you don't want to have all of the elements in your page styled the same way. So we can override any piece of styling on any part of our document, on any element. So let's say that for this part, for the world, which is emphasized and strong, we will want to use a different font. So let's select just that element, the EM element. And let's change the font family there to something else. And by the way, Sublime, which is really cool, gives me these auto-completion features. So it knows about all of the possible properties and can suggest them for me. I want the font family, and I can use the tab to complete this as well, just because Sublime is nice. And let's change it to Tahoma. Okay, so Tahoma is another kind of font. Save this. And now that I refresh it, take a look at this word. And it's now got a different font, okay, which is, I think, nicer for the emphasized part. Okay, so this is how I can override a piece of styling. And what we've seen so far is how we can apply CSS styling to types of elements. So we've used just type. But actually, we don't always want to style all of the elements of the same type in the same way. So for that, CSS offers us another feature, which is known as IDs. So by using an ID, we can target with our styling rules a specific element, just a single element somewhere on our page. To do that, we will use an attribute named ID. We will add it to the element that we want to change. And then in our CSS, we will target that by prefixing the ID with this hash symbol. Okay, let's see an example of how to use that. Okay, going back to our content, let's say that we want to target the greeting, okay? This piece, let's say that we want to give this a different color. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll add an ID attribute here. I'll give it the value greeting. And then to target it, I'll add a rule to our CSS, starting with a hash, and then the name of the ID, so that's greeting. Curly braces, of course. And inside of it, let's choose a different color. So let's say color blue. Save it, refresh, and this whole part changed to blue now. And it only affected this particular element. Okay, so this is a way for me to style a particular element without touching any other elements of the same kind. And concerning the colors, so HTML gives us about 300 named colors. Pretty much any color name you can think of will be available for you to use through CSS. Let's say we want to make it purple. So of course, this will work. Pretty much any other color as well. And if your color doesn't have a name, you can even define colors yourself by using the numbers, the values of red, green, and blue that you want. And that will give you over 65,000 options. Oh, sorry, even more. So it will give you 16 million different colors. So imagination is your only limit. Okay, so this is how to style a particular element. An annoying part of our document now is that this logo, which we've put inside the paragraph, is huge, right? Let's make it less huge. So we can use the same kind of thing. So we can give it an ID. Let's name it logo. Okay, so I've added the attribute ID, and it doesn't matter the order of the attributes. So here I've put ID in front of src, but it could go anywhere else in the start tag. And I'll add another rule to target just that ID, the logo, and I'll change the size of that element to be of width 45 pixels. So px stands for pixels, which are points on the screen. And I'll give it a height of 20 pixels. Okay, I'll save it and refresh. And now this looks much nicer. Okay, so now this logo fits neatly inside of the paragraph. Okay, and let me quickly show you another cool feature of CSS, which is similar to IDs, known as class. So classes are the same as IDs. They let us target specific elements, but rather than target only a single element, classes let us target several elements, which are related in some way and should have the same styling. So let's say that I want to target the topics section of our document, okay? So this paragraph, as well as this list, I want to style them to have a green color. Both of them are the topics, okay? So I'll use class topics, both here and in the ordered list. Okay. And in our CSS, to create a rule that targets a class, I'll use dot and then the name of the class, so in this case, topics. And as declaration, I'll choose color green. Okay, I'll save, refresh, and all of this has now become green. This is cool. Classes and IDs are usually the main kind of selectors used in CSS because they let us decouple the types of elements from their styling. And now that, for example, if we wanted to change the ordered list to an unordered list, it would still work and would still be green because our selector is only relying on the class and not on the type of element. So as I mentioned, there's hundreds of different properties in CSS. The range of options you have to style your documents is incredible. In a sense, you've seen the web, you're familiar with what you can do. Pretty much anything that you can draw on a piece of paper, you can also create on the web using this kind of CSS. And that's pretty much all there is to know about it.
The thing to remember with this is we're showing you the absolute basics of HTML and CSS. Every website that you use every day uses these basics, and obviously it looks much fancier, much cleaner. There's a lot more going on, but every website uses these two fundamental things as a way to actually start. That's 100% how they work. So what we're showing you is the absolute basics, but if you go into it, it just gets more and more advanced, but they all use this.
Yeah, so that's just what I want to say, that there's lots of other properties you can change, but the language is this basic. There's pretty much no other features to the CSS language. It's just about selector, curly braces, and pairs of property and value. So this was CSS, and now I want to take a short look at the third language used on the web, which is JavaScript. So as I mentioned, JavaScript is used to add interactivity to a page. So the page we currently have, which is constructed out of HTML and CSS, is a decent page. It has the content we want, and it has links, and it has some basic styling. It still looks crappy, but it's got style. But it's always the same. So there's nothing a user can do that would affect the page in any way. But let's say that I wanted the user to have some control. For that, we can use JavaScript. So let's say, for example, that we wanted something to happen when a user clicks the word JavaScript. Okay. What we do with the JavaScript language is that we can handle different kinds of events that happen on the page. There are many kinds of events, such as clicking somewhere, moving the mouse, typing something with your keyboard, resizing the window, the passage of time. We can set timers to go on. And for each type of event like this, we can say what should happen when the event occurs. And we use that by adding additional properties, additional attributes to our HTML. So in this case, I want to add an onClick attribute here to our list item, to the specific one. And inside of it, I'll add a piece of JavaScript code. Okay, what I'll do is I'll take this element, I'll address the inner part of this element. So this is known as the inner HTML. And what I'll choose to do here is to append something to it. So I want to change the content, the inner HTML, and add something at the end of it. So I'll do plus equals. This means append. And I'll use single quotes for the content I want to add there. So inside of single quotes, let's add and JavaScript. Okay, so I've added the additional content inside single quotes, such that we use the single quotes inside JavaScript while we use the double quotes for the attribute itself. And just like with CSS, at the end of the JavaScript command, I'll put a semicolon. Okay, I'll make this a bit wider so you can see this. Okay, so the onClick value has this piece of JavaScript code, this.innerHTML plus equals and JavaScript. And there's a reason I started with a space, and we'll see that in a second. So I've saved this, and I'll refresh, and absolutely nothing happened. But nothing happened because that event has not occurred yet. So what we've done is to add a handler to the onClick event. So let's see what happens when I click it now. Okay, I'm clicking the word JavaScript, and this piece of JavaScript appended the words and JavaScript to the end of it. Let me click it again. Okay, every time this event occurs, it will add this additional code, this additional content to our element. Okay, this is what JavaScript gives us. We can handle any type of event and do whatever we want to do to our pages.
And this is really where the interactivity comes in. Up until this point, what we've had is really a website, because you just go on, you look at the information, and then you leave. We've now created a web application, something where you can actually interact with it. So a website you could commonly think of would be something like, let's say bbc.co.uk. It's just a news site. You go on, you read the article, and then you leave. But if you think of something like Facebook, that's much more interactive. You can post a status, you can share photos, you can make friends with people. It's all kinds of things. And that's where the interactivity plays in. And that's what JavaScript really lets you do.
Do I have another minute to show something else?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Okay. So this was a bit of taste to JavaScript. JavaScript is probably the most complicated language of these three, and it lets you handle pretty much anything you want in any kind of logic you want. Whatever you can imagine that you want to happen, you can make it happen. And I'll wrap it up with another example of the power of the web. Going back to HTML, I'm going to find a video I like on YouTube. Okay, there's this film I like called Starship Troopers. It's an old one. And it has a part of it, a repeating part, where it asks the viewer, would you like to know more? Okay, would you like to know more? I'll find that on YouTube. Okay, I already found it. I'll go into YouTube. Every day. I won't be showing you that video now, but you can watch it later. It stars Neil Patrick Harris.
That's a different webinar where we, me and Yoni, commentate on movies as we watch them.
And old sci-fi movies. Yeah, we definitely should do that. So what I want to do here is, because I think that this fits well into learning HTML, it's all about, would you like to know more? Would you like to know about different features and additional things you can do? What I'll do is that I'll click this share button. Okay, YouTube provides that on all videos. And by default, it just lets you take the URL and put it out anywhere and send it to your friends. But it also has this nice embed option. When you click embed, instead of just the URL, just the path, it gives you an HTML element of a type we haven't seen before called iframe. Iframe stands for inline frame, and I'll paste it into our code. What this does is that instead of just being a link, it will put the video directly inside of our page. So it's a way to put that website directly inside. Okay, so I'll say refresh. Okay, and just below this list of ours, we get the YouTube video. And this is also something that's kind of amazing in my opinion. Sorry. That was invented in 1991 with the invention of the web. So this lets us. This is part of the hyper, right? So when we say HTML, a hypertext markup language, so this kind of connection between different unrelated resources, any resource can point to any other resource and reuse parts of it. Okay, we've reused an image, we've used a whole video. We can do whatever we want to combine and modify and remix anything in the world. And this is the power. And I hope you would like to know more.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. All right. Thanks very much, Yoni. So what I think we'll do now is we'll go back to the original slides, back to me, back to Owen. And what we're going to do is I said at the start, so what we learned is we learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create your first website. I'm going to run a quick poll because I'm curious as to how it's gone. So I'm just going to ask, have you learned a lot today? That's all I'll ask. Keep it nice and simple. So, and the options will be nice and simple as well. Just yes or no. So let us know. Have you learned a lot? Is it a yes? Is it a no? I'm seeing a lot of yeses. It's 100% yes, but I just put it up. So maybe that's one particularly happy person and several angry people. I'm seeing 100%. So 98 to 2. So that's okay. So that's all right. If you haven't learned a lot, well, we're very sorry. We'll pack in more content next time, I think is all we can do. All right. So I think we've definitely learned a lot today. So I said at the start of the session that what we were going to do is we were going to run this session. We were going to teach you a little bit of coding, give you a taste, and give you an understanding of what it's like. And I also said that if there were people who were interested at the end, I would also talk about an offer and tell you about a course that we actually run. So would it be okay with everyone if I actually told you about that offer? So if you're okay with that, just type yes into the chat box. And if you are, I will go ahead and I will tell you about the course. And if not, I guess we won't. And
so
we
if one person types in no.
Oh, I don't know. I don't. I feel like if 100 people type in yes and one person types in no, I think it would be a little remiss to say, all right, I'm seeing lots of yeses. So if I see a no, we'll have to test your theory, Yoni, and see what happens then. So I'm hearing lots of yeses. So this is great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of the courses we run. So we're back to the global skills shortage, which again, if you remember, was this red line here is the number of available computing jobs. And this blue line here is the number of computer science graduates that are available to fill them. So there's 750,000 jobs that will be open by 2020. So that will be people, that's over all of Europe. It's about 100,000 in the UK at that time. So what we're seeing is there's a huge amount of growth in this area. It's a really great career to move into now because there's so many jobs now and there's going to be jobs in the future. And that's the exciting part of coding. If you enjoyed the workshop, this is something you could be doing every day. This could be how you could make your living. You could be just like Yoni. So what this has done to developer salaries is there's not enough people to fill the jobs. So that means that the jobs that are there have to pay more to attract the right people. So what we're seeing is an increase in sort of average salaries. So if you were to, this is off Morgan McKinley's site, their recruitment firm. So if you have about 0 to 3 years experience, we've seen £25,000. That's about 30,000 euro over here. That's pretty common for someone who's just starting off in the field. That's like a common starting salary. Maybe less if you're at a startup, it could be £20,000 because they just have less resources, but generally around there.
But and you would get stock as well.
Say again?
You would get stocks for the startup company.
You would get stocks in a startup company. Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. So really, when you move on to it, the sky is the limit. So after 5 years, you could double your salary, which is pretty unusual. I don't know too many careers where you can actually do that. So in terms of Code Institute, again, we're a coding education company that helps you change or upgrade your career. That is the reason that we exist. That's what we're trying to do. So in terms of how the course was developed, it was very important for us that we use something called the Industry Advisory Council. So all the skills that you learn, the reason we have certain coding languages on our syllabus is that we went to employers. And just as an example, let's pretend that Yoni doesn't know how to code and he wanted to learn how to code with us at Code Institute. We go to these employers and we say, let's pretend that Yoni has completed our course and he now knows Python, he knows Django, he knows JavaScript, he knows jQuery, he knows all these different things. How interested would you be in interviewing Yoni, even in potentially hiring Yoni if everything else was correct. And depending on what they say, we adjust the course syllabus, because we don't want to just teach you how to code. We want to teach you how to code so that you can go on and start a new career in code or upgrade your career, whatever that is. So the kind of people who are on this council, it's people from Morgan McKinley, a very large recruitment firm. It's Accenture, the largest consulting firm in the world. There's PayPal, there's MasterCard, GlaxoSmithKline. Red Hat are very big in the open source software community. They're actually a fantastic contributor for us. So the idea is that you're learning skills that the job market is looking for right now, and not skills that are, were out of date 5 years ago. And that's really the key thing for us. In terms of the course overview, there's 4 streams, and I'm going to run you through them now so you get an understanding of what it looks like and what you walk away with. And the fun thing about this is we'll actually be showing you some student projects as well. So make sure you stick around for those. Those are really fun to go through. So we're going to start off with Stream 0. This is where you learn the absolute basics of coding. So the workshop we've just done would be, that would be the very start of Stream 0 for us, because what we do in Stream 0 is we teach you the absolute basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Python. And the goal is really to get you up to speed with the simplest of simple coding languages. And that's because when we start on Stream 1, we want to make sure you hit the ground running. We want to make sure that you can change career very quickly if that's something you want to do. And that's really the goal behind Stream 0, to get the absolute basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript covered off so you can start the course and be really effective as you go through it. Then we have Stream 1. And this is front end. I'm going to show you a student project in a second. So this is where you learn to showcase and create beautiful websites. That's really the goal behind it. And you'll cover some of the things we covered today, but much more advanced ways of using them. So it's HTML5 and CSS3, which are the latest versions of HTML5 and CSS. There's JavaScript libraries. So libraries are pre-written pieces of code that allow you to basically take what someone else has already created and pop it into your website or web application. Really, really fantastic. And they're all available free, which is fantastic. Front-end frameworks. So a framework is like a quick way of creating something. I've probably butchered that as an explanation. No, that's good. Okay, good. So Bootstrap and AngularJS, they allow you to put together web pages very, very quickly. That's the point of them. Responsive design. So does your page work on mobile as it does on desktop and so on? Sublime text, much more in depth on that, and using the command line as well. So I'm keeping an eye on the chat as we go, and I can see that Ben has actually hopped on and he's helping out in the chat, which is great because I can't really do 2 things at once. So thank you, Ben. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat box and I will answer them at the end. So let's go through a student project. I'm going to use Yoni's mouse here, which is much better than his touchpad. So Yoni, if you wouldn't mind typing for me. So I'm just going to give you the background on this. So this was created after 4 weeks. In our classroom bootcamp. So the goal of it is, it's Night Owl. It's to find you music venues in your city. So let's just go for polka. I'm not sure how many polka venues there are. Let's go for rock. Yeah. Let's just go for Dublin, just because that's where we are. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll hit go, and a couple of things happen at once. So the page splits into 2. On the left-hand side, you have your various different bars and pubs that have rock music. In this case, it's the Gypsy Rose Rock and Blues Bar. And on the right-hand side, you have the Google Maps information that tells you where it actually is. So what this website uses is a couple of things. It uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Remember what we said about how we taught you the absolute basics, and as you get more advanced, you still use those. You just use more advanced variants of them. It's actually using an API to pull in this information from Yelp, actually, Yelp.com. So it's pulling information from Yelp. And Obi, the person who put this together, has actually structured the web page and told the web browser to display it in a certain way. So a picture here, an address here, a review here, a number here, and so on. So that is a Stream 1 project. If you were doing this course full-time, 40 hours a week, you could expect to walk away with this after 4 weeks. If you were doing it part-time, it could be after, let's say, 12 weeks, I suppose. As much time as you want. As much time as you want, really. So that is Stream 1. So I'm going to have a quick look and see if there's any questions. Oh, there's loads of questions. Oh, Ben is being a great guy, and he's actually answering them. I'm seeing some of them. So Hamza has asked, is there any qualifications given after the courses with learning people? So Hamza, I'll go into more detail on that a little later on, but just to give you an idea now, it's a level 5 in the UK diploma you walk away with. So moving on to Stream 2, this is the backend. So this is where you learn how databases and application backends work and then create your first data dashboard. So you use everything you've learned in Stream 1, and then you add some new knowledge like databases and backend to what you're learning. So I'm going to show you a project in just a second. So some of the things you're learning, you can speak to these a little better than me. You can use classes and objects. So what would those be? If you were to explain to, a 10-year-old what they were in 10 seconds, what would you say a class and object is?
Rather than typing in instructions to the computer one at a time, by using classes and objects, you can model the real world and encapsulate parts of it. So like you might have, if you're dealing with pubs, so you might have an object for each pub, and inside of it, you'll create the functionality such that a pub object knows by itself everything that has to do with it. I'm not sure I can explain a bit more it will take more time, but in general, it's a great way of making your code more organized and ending up with less code to do more.
I probably asked you to explain one of the most high-level theoretical concepts in 10 seconds to a 5-year-old. That was a tricky question to give you. So we do cover Python program. So this is a back-end programming language. HTML and CSS are used for the front end. Python is used for the back end. Data visualization. I'm going to show you a student project in just a second. I'm not going to bother trying to explain data visualization to you. I'm just going to show you. Integrated development environments. This really means when you're coding in the back end, you have a specific environment. So just like we use Sublime today, which made our lives much easier in terms of coding HTML, if you use an IDE like PyCharm, it's much easier to code Python. And there's debugging, there's unit testing, there's micro frameworks, which are particularly interesting, and databases as well. So MongoDB is used in big data, which is a hugely, hugely valuable and employable skill, and then MySQL as well. So what I'd like to do is I'd just like to show you a student project. So I'm going to give you the background on this project. So one of our students, Jody, actually created this. Now, Jody is a diabetic. So it's very important for him that he monitors his average blood glucose, because if it goes too high, he will actually go into a diabetic coma, which is quite dangerous. So what he did is Jody takes his average blood glucose every couple of hours during the day. And it's very important to him that it isn't high or very high, because that's quite bad for his health. So let me show you. Normally, by the way, when he gets that data, it comes out in a spreadsheet. It's very difficult to understand. There's lots of different columns. There's sort of weird tables. What he did is he took that data, he put it into a database, and he used his HTML and CSS skills and his data visualization skills that he learned on the course, and he put it into this data dashboard. So let me show you from May to June. This was how his blood glucose looked. So it's either very high or high almost 75% of the time. So something is very wrong there, either in his diet or his exercise or whatever is going on. Now, Jody made a number of adjustments over the months, and you can see that when he comes into September, he's made a huge difference. His blood glucose is normal, maybe 50% of the time. So it's taking data that it's really just taking information that is otherwise quite difficult to sift through and understand, and making it very easy. So I'd be curious to see in the comments, actually, if anyone has any uses they could see for this already. I mean, for me personally, I use data dashboards a lot in my day job in marketing, and it makes things a lot easier. But I'd be interested to see if anyone has any personal examples that they were thinking this would be quite useful for, or even work examples. Feel free to type that into the chat box. I'd love to see that. So that is Stream 2. So Stream 3 is full stack development. So this is where you create your first full stack web application. This is where you take all the skills you've used up until this point, your front end, your back end, your data, and you put it all together and create one project that you can use. And once you complete this, you can call yourself a full stack web developer, because you've designed the front end, you've created the back end, and you've worked with the data as well. And you've put it into one full stack web application. So what you actually do here is you're using much more advanced frameworks, using a framework called Django, which is a framework for Python. So it's like a framework within a language. It's a full stack framework. So what you actually become good at this point is creating full web applications that are of value to the world. It's no longer about creating websites or things that are, just for example. This is where you actually walk away and create something that someone would go out and potentially pay for because it's a fully integrated application that works fully. So I'm going to show you a project because I think that it'll make a lot more sense if I show it to you. So I'm going to ask Yoni to actually tell you a little bit about this, just maybe 30 seconds, and just talk about this PM planner.
Okay. Hey, so this Stream3 project uses Django to manage information about patients in a hospital for midwives. So before this kind of application existed, every midwife would manage all of her client information, data about all of the pregnant women, just on pieces of paper, on medical records held in paper files. And to move that information from one midwife to the next midwife who would treat the same patient, they would need to actually pass the file between them manually. So by using this kind of application, we will have a database to manage all of these clients. So what this looks like is that you can add clients to the list. So you can describe all of the information about a client. I'm sorry that this is a bit slow. This is because it's using a free hosting provider. So we wouldn't expect students to pay expensive fees for.
Yeah, and we also wanted to show you real live student projects so you could see what they actually looked like and not some polished version we'd created.
Yeah, this is a real project created by student and hosted on the internet for free to be used by other people. So this application lets midwives create these patient profiles, and these are all fake, but this can equivalently be real data. So for each patient, it would have personal details, some clinical info, previous pregnancy information, and lots of notes. And because this is a full stack project, what this means is that it's not just the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that are available to a single user on the web browser. This actually has a backend behind it and has a database to keep all of this information. And once a midwife changes a piece of data, let's say that actually this was wrong, okay, and the date of birth was the 23rd. So one midwife changes this goes to the backend, it changes the data in the database, and then is immediately available to all of the midwives. So this is the wonderful thing about full stack application development. Okay, you have a way of sharing information with all of the users immediately. So this is the big thing. This application also gives us forum and the option of paying for additional features. So we also teach in Stream3 how to use payment providers. And that's what I wanted to tell about.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks very much, Yoni. So those are 3 projects. So what you walk away with when you actually complete the course is 3 projects just like that. You have a front-end website. You have, it's really more of a web application because it's interactive. You walk away with a data dashboard, and you can use any data that you like. We just say, here are the tools, build whatever you think is cool. We've had lots of different examples, and a full stack web application as well. So that is what you walk away with in each stream. So in terms of the support you get as you go through that, so we also have expert mentors who will work with you throughout the course. So Yoni is a mentor on a course. He's our head of mentoring. So these are people who have worked for Fortune 500 companies. They founded startups, and the goal is that they accelerate your learning. So they work with you over 20 hours for the course. To date, I think we've had 3 people ever use up the full 20 hours. It's been a very low amount. So 20 hours is more than enough time to help you throughout the entire course. And they've worked for a number of different companies: Google, HP, Barclays, Mozilla. There's lots more, actually. I must update this slide, but that gives you an idea of the quality of people that are actually working to help you through the program. So it is university credit rated. There's been a number of questions about that. So it's a level 5 on the European qualifications framework. So that's equivalent to a UK level 5 diploma. So what that basically means is if you, it's recognized globally. So wherever you earn the diploma, you can go somewhere else. You can go to Spain, you can go to Germany, you can go to France, and they will look at the diploma and say, yes, I know what that means. That's a level 5 in the UK, which is actually a level 5 in the European qualifications framework. And that's something else here in France. So that's how that works. And What that really means is that your learning is backed by a university. So not only, and it's really powerful as well, because you walk away with this certification. So when you go into a job interview, you walk in with a portfolio with the latest languages and technologies in it. You have 3 really cool projects you can show off. And you also have a certificate that the employer can look at and say, yep, I know what that means. That's this sort of level. So you're at this level as a coder. Excellent. So it's a really powerful sort of combination when you walk into an interview, both qualified and with a really good portfolio. So there's a great community as well. So this is where you can network and meet your future coworkers. You can get help with your community, with your coding problems. And there's a 24/7 community access. So you get help with your questions. So I'm just going to show you an example. So this is at 3:25 on a Friday afternoon. Kenny has asked this very specific question. What's the difference between Angular.min.js and Angular.js? So it's one of these particularly specific questions that no amount of Googling will actually help you answer. So Gunnar Jr. jumps in here after 20 minutes and gives a full answer. And Yoni is actually just a little bit behind and he jumps in as well. So the nice thing is no matter what time you have a problem with, there's probably going to be another student online who will be happy to try and help you out. And if not, Yoni will be in the next day and he'll answer you in the morning.
Yeah, no question left unanswered.
No question left unanswered. And that's just for the small questions you have. For the bigger questions you have, your mentor is there. You can schedule a session with them. You can hop on a call and get your question answered and you can go from there. So there's 2 types of support there for you. There's also career support as well. So the Learning People have this really excellent program they call the CV Detox, and this is where they help you with your marketing materials. What I really mean by that is the materials you use to send to employers and tell them about who you are and why you're good for the job. So they'll help you with your LinkedIn, your CV, your cover letter, and sort of help you through that process of designing your sort of story, I guess, when you go into interviews. And then there's interview masterclasses. And I suppose this is careers webinars. So this is where we bring industry experts in and we have a session with them. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. And the basic question we have at the start of every one is, if you were starting your career over, what advice would you give? And they're really there to answer your questions. And if you have any specific questions about how you should go out into the jobs market, they can help you out. And it's a really great resource for you to actually see how other people have done it. For example, we had a school teacher who actually changed career to being a business analyst, which is very code heavy. So her story was very good for students because they were able to see that actually networking is one of the most important things you can do. So in terms, I'm sure most of you know about the Learning People already. So there's a number of great reasons to work with them. For me, I think their work with the different jobs boards, Total Jobs, Reed, The Telegraph, they have a really good understanding of the jobs market that's there. There's the CV Detox, which we spoke about again, which is really great one-to-one career advice, which is really great. I think the student card is pretty cool as well. There's lots of savings there. So that's just me though. The program structure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So this is the actual shape of it. So how does it look? Well, what does a day-to-day on this look? So you have up to 52 weeks to complete the program. We usually recommend about 36 weeks, but you can take up to 52 weeks and longer if you really need to. And you have a mentor who works with you throughout the program. The way it breaks down is there's 480 hours of learning, which sounds very scary, but if you break it down over a number of weeks, it's actually quite manageable. So if you wanted to do this over 10 hours a week, you can take about a year to do it and you'll have completed the course in that time. So if you think about it, it's really maybe half a day on Saturday and an hour each evening, which is totally doable, particularly if you're looking to change career. So the Code Institute Diploma in Software Development. This is really, and I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat here as well. Jono and Ben are doing a great job of answering your questions, so thank you very much, guys. So the goal of this Code Institute Diploma in Software Development is that you learn everything you need to know to become a software developer. Now, that's a really important distinction versus just learn everything you need to know to create a website. Really, the goal of this course is to help you change your career to this or upgrade your career from sometimes people are working in customer support positions and they want to become a developer. And sometimes they're working in a deli and they want to move on to becoming a developer. We actually had a student who had that exact story. So that's really the goal of the diploma. So in terms of the investment, in terms of how much it costs and so on. So there's a couple of different options if you were to pursue a career in this, okay? So option one is you could learn everything yourself. That is definitely an option. It would take a lot longer. We sort of said that if it takes 10,000 hours to become a master or an expert in something, to get to a level where you're a junior developer, we said, all right, how about a quarter of that? So if you were to invest your own time, 2,000 hours of your own time, and we assigned a value of £10 an hour to that, it would be 20,000 to 25,000 to pursue option one. I mean, it's technically free, but your time does have a value. Everyone's time has a value. Option two, you could go to university for 4 years. Now, I don't fully understand how the UK university system works, so this is somewhat based on the Irish system. But between rent, living expenses, registration fees for 4 years, we sort of said about €44,000, and we kind of translated that over to the UK. It might be slightly different, I'm not sure, but certainly the thing to remember here is it's going to take you 4 years. If you were to do the diploma in software development, it would take you a year, or much less if you wanted it to. It just depends on the amount of time you have available to actually jump in and complete the course. There is a third option. You can do nothing. And this is an option if, changing career isn't a big deal for you, if you're happy enough with your current situation. You don't have to, you can do nothing. The cost to that, it just depends on what you want to do and what makes you happy going to work every day. Just depends. The fourth option is you can invest in your future. So this is a tenth of the cost of those other options. So I just wanted to cover at a high level everything that you get with the Mentored Online Diploma. So there's the curriculum designed by the Industry Advisory Council. So this is MasterCard, PayPal, Morgan McKinley, etc., all putting their expertise into the syllabus and making sure that you're learning the latest and I was about to say latest and greatest, but latest and most advanced languages and technologies that are out there. There's the 24/7 community access. There's the 20 hours one-to-one mentoring with an expert like Yoni, which is a hugely valuable thing to have. There's a CV detox with learning people. There's the one-to-one career advice there. And there's access to those careers webinars recordings and also the live ones as well. So all in all, we're talking about £13,000 of value in total. So in terms of what you're really investing in, you're really investing in no more wasting time. So the goal of the diploma is to get you a result as fast as possible. If you want to change career, this is the one that will help you more than anything else in terms of speed. No more ups and downs. So what that really is you are being given the exact system you need to follow to change career. Here's the languages you need to learn. Here's the exercises you need to complete. Here's the projects you should do. And here's any help you need along the way. So that's the second thing. No questions unanswered. So this is something Yoni really likes as well. If you ask something in the chat, it will be answered. And if it's too technical and can't be answered there, you can work with your mentor and they will help you with that. Then there's learning exactly what you need when you need it. If you're learning on your own, it can be really difficult because you're trying to be both the student and the teacher. With this, all you have to do is work hard and show up. If you do that, you're going to get a great result at the end. It's the first 3 months of your new career. That's what we really think about. That's if you're doing it full-time. If you're doing it part-time, it's the first year of your new career. And really, it's the knowledge, support, and mentorship required for success, okay? So in terms of who the course is for, it is for a specific type of person, really. So it's a couple of different criteria. So number one, you want to change or upgrade your career. Number two, you're willing to work hard to achieve this. This is hard work, but if you enjoy it, it's still hard work, but it's enjoyable. Number three is that you're busy and you don't have time to waste. It's something you want to make a move on in the next year. If it's something that you're happy enough and maybe in 7 years, you're okay to make it. You probably don't need this course, but if you want to make a change in the next year, this is a great way to go. And finally, you have a keen interest in tech already. So there's lots of ways to put criteria on that. But if you follow along with this workshop and you were saying to yourself, this is really cool, that's definitely enough. If you've been following along and saying, this is brilliant, like I want to know more about this, that's ideal. So we also have a bonus for everyone who has come on this webinar. So there is a £500 discount if you buy the course before this Friday at 5:30 p.m. So normal price is $4,495, but if you enroll before this Friday, it's available for £3,995. So your next steps I also mentioned a competition. So another thing that we'll actually be doing is, our learning people will be doing, is anyone who enrolls onto a full stack developer course that this diploma in software development before Friday at 5:30 will be entered into a draw to win one of two cashback prizes of £500. So essentially, you could get a £500 discount on the course and potentially win a £500 cashback as well. So in terms of your next steps, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and sign up for a consultation call if this is looking interesting to you. So what I have here is I'm just going to load up in the room. So if you click this link, it's going to take you to a landing page where you can fill in some information. What the call basically is it really discusses sort of a number of things, but the goal is that it's a free consultation call with a coding expert. So if you want to understand what the best next steps are for your career, if you are looking for a little bit more in-depth discussion on what the syllabus is and what you walk away with, this is an ideal call for you. And that's really the goal of that call. So I've set that up there, and you can click sign up just there on the call to action. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit. So what I'd like to do is just open up to any questions that there are, and I'm going to take a quick second just to look through the questions that are on this chat. Okay. So I'm seeing lots of questions. I'm just trying to figure out which have already been answered by Jono. So I tell you what, there was a few questions that were sent in. So one of the questions was, should I know how to code before doing this course? So what I would say is, no, you don't have to know how to code before doing this course. It's really designed to take you from absolute zero up to being good enough to enter the industry as a full stack web developer. That's really what the goal is.
From zero to hero.
From zero to hero. Yoni, you're the one who should be working in marketing, man. Another question is, can I meet my mentor in person, or how does I think really the question is, how does the mentoring work? So a simple way it would work is, say you were doing the course and on Tuesday morning you came across a coding problem that you just weren't able to solve. You could get in touch with your mentor and schedule a session with them, potentially that evening if they had availability. Hop on a quick 20 to 30 minute Skype call with them, get help with your problem, and they'll do their best to help you in that session. And that's kind of how it works. So it can be quite quick. As long as they have availability, they'll work with you as soon as they can.
So usually we would use Skype. I think for all of my students have used Skype, but if some of my students, if anyone ends up here, we can also do that over a pint of Guinness.
Pint of Guinness.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. The other thing I'd like to say is that a number of people have asked how much the course is and how it works. So one of the nice things is, if you are in the UK, the Learning People actually offer flexible payment plans. And there's different options for this. They really vary depending on your situation. So what I would suggest, if you're thinking about this, if it's something you're interested in and you'd like to, and you're looking at the price and saying, I'd like to do it, I'm just not sure exactly how, I'd really recommend booking a consultation call, because the education consultants is what they're called. The education consultants there and Learning People will have a talk with you, and they'll discuss all the payment options that are available to you. Let's see. So Mo has asked, student life means I have no money. Are there different payment options available? So Mo, there are. I think I discussed that just there. So if you're interested in that, if you'd like to find out a little bit more about that, I would really encourage you to go ahead and click through and sign up for one of those strategy calls, that consultation call. So let's see. God, there's so many. I'm actually having trouble. So Mo has asked, I'm currently at university, which is already quite intensive. Would this be recommended on the side? It could potentially be a lot to add to your current coursework. It would really depend on what your goals are. We've had a number of people who found that college was too theoretical for them. Actually, Yoni, you're one of those people. Mm-hmm. And they actually said, this is too theoretical. I feel like this is going to take too long. And they've decided to do the diploma instead. I would never knock going to college. I think it's a really great setup for some people. For other people, they may be looking for a result and that's kind of what they're looking for. But I would never say anything against colleges because I think they do a fantastic job. Really,
So-
it just may take a little long for some people, 4 years versus a year doing this diploma.
So the person who asked is already in college?
They're already in college.
So what I would say is that if you're just beginning a college life, then I wouldn't do this. But if you're, let's say, on your last year and you know that you have the time available and you want to pick coding up in addition to what you're learning in university, then why not? Yeah, so picking up an additional skill would really help you in the workplace afterwards.
Okay. And someone has just asked for the consultation call link in the chat room. So I'm just going to put it on the top just because it doesn't seem to be displaying for some people. So Marek has asked, is that diploma recognized in USA, Canada, and Australia? Sorry, I need to do some voice training so I can keep my voice. So Marek, the diploma is on the European Qualifications Framework. So the European Qualifications Framework means that it's recognized within Europe. As for, because it's on that European Qualifications Framework, it does tend to map to those different countries. Now in the USA, every state has a different framework, and there's no US qualification framework that maps all onto them individually. So it would be recognized, but it may not map to a specific state in the US or a specific part of Canada, but they would understand that this is the general level that it is. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so let's go through some more of these questions. So if there's any questions at all, feel free to jump in. So Mo has asked, will the presentation be available after the webinar? It will. Amy has asked, I always get confused when I see domain names, by domain sites, and how to choose these. Amy, I'm not sure what the question is. If you want to go ahead and ask that again.
I can speak about it for a bit.
Domain names, by domain sites? I think she's talking about buying domain names, is it?
Yeah. So in this lesson, in this workshop, we've created a website on our own computer, right? So just as a file. The next step, if you want to make this site available to others, is to use a hosting provider. So there are many companies who would give you the option to host your site for free, such that it will be available to everyone. But then the address that people would need to type in to reach that website would usually be something very long and not quite nice. So if you want your website to be available through a very short address, that is the address that you wanted, then you will need to pay to own that domain. And that's where that comes in. So there are many providers whom you can pay, let's say, $10 a year and buy yourself a really nice, neat domain name, such as meandmyself.com.
Meandmyself.com.
Yeah.
I bet that's available for like 10,000 quid. All right, so Amy has asked, I was told there is no international standard qualification for web development. Is that true? So Amy, there is no standard international qualification for web development. That is definitely true. There's lots of different ones, but there's no standard as of yet. So what tends to happen for coding, at least, is they tend to look at the portfolio in a big way. But we decided that, a portfolio and university credit rated learning is a really nice combination. So that's kind of what we did there. Mo has more of a comment here. He says, university is not the best learning environment for programming. That can be true. I suppose it depends on the university. Peter's asked, do you have training for senior dev into new tech, e.g. PHP or project management? Peter, we personally don't, but I'd encourage you to go ahead and sign up for a consultation call because Learning People may have something that would suit you. There's a question about what's the difference between HTML and XML. Do you want to do a quick 10-second explainer of that?
Yeah. So XML is another markup language. HTML and XML both derive from the same language named SGML, the standard general markup language. They both look very much the same, but only HTML is used to actually mark up your websites, while XML is used in general to just write down and save lots of data. And indeed, sometimes when you want to pass data around on the web between the backend and the front end, or between different services on the web, then you would use a XML to store that data.
Okay, cool. Hopefully that makes sense. Odette has asked, how much more complex is the full course? Are there ever people who just can't comprehend the content? So, Odette, there has been instances where people have said, I really don't understand this. What we usually do in that case is we tend to work with them quite intensively as best that we can. It does happen every now and then, but you'll find out quite quickly if you're doing Stream Zero if this isn't for you. It is more complex, but if you found this webinar okay, I would say you're doing really well. And remember, there is that 30% rule. If you only understand 30% of what's going on at any one time, you're doing well. So it definitely does take some people longer than others. Mark has asked, can you commit to a single stream at a time? So Mark,
Absolutely.
Currently we don't. I think he's asking if you buy one stream at a time.
No.
So it is done one stream at a time, but you can't buy, say, just stream 2, because our whole thing is contextual learning. So if you were to buy just stream 2, it would say, remember back in stream 1 when we did this thing, we're going to do that again. So it really wouldn't work. So it's really the whole course or none of the course at the moment. Josh has asked, are there any classroom classes with learning people, or is it all online? Josh, it's currently all online. Odette has asked, does one need to be in the industry while studying for this course? And I would say, no, absolutely not. The entire point and goal of the course is to help you move into industry. So no, you don't need to be a developer to get value from a course like this. In fact, it's most valuable for people who are looking to move into the industry. That's really the goal of it. Olivia has asked, what stage is one introduced to all this coding terminology? I'm sure I would understand a lot easier if I knew what some of the terms meant. So for the most part, the coding terminology is introduced in Stream 0, but it really comes throughout the course. As you learn new topics, there's new terms, there's new terminology. So it really comes as you go through the program.
And we're going to release a short booklet about coding terminology in the upcoming weeks.
Oh, yes, we will. We'll have to get in touch with that. So I'm trying to find more questions. So there is this like a degree or slightly less, like an associate's degree in software development? Yeah, I don't know, Connor. It would depend on the education network in your particular country. So for the most part, yeah, you could say you have a diploma in software development. That would be correct. Mo's asked, level 5, isn't that like college level? I suppose it would depend on how that actually maps on in the UK. I won't speak on that just because I'm not 100% sure of the UK system. So there's a couple of interesting questions here. One from Hamza and one from Marek. They're basically around the same theme. What is the success rate for students of this course to find a job in the industry shortly after? What is the percentage of people who started the course? They're two different questions, actually. So Hamza, I'm going to answer your question directly. So what I find is when someone asks the question of what is the success rate of your students, really the question that they're asking is, how do I know that this will work for me in my current situation? So I can give you lots of examples of students who've completed the course and gone on to find success in industry. We've had students like Dara Brown, who started working who was a deli worker, who went on to actually, he's working as a developer currently. What I can say is we have plenty of examples of students who've come from absolutely no coding background at all and moving into this industry. Usually the question is I find it's really looking for something that we can't guarantee, and that's guaranteeing a job. So no course that you do, you could go to any course provider in the world actually and say, I'd like the courses that you offer that guarantee me a job at the end. And none of them will actually be able to do that for you. So what do we guarantee? There's a couple of things we guarantee. There's three main things. The first thing is that we guarantee you'll be learning the latest technologies and skills that industries are looking for right now. That's the one thing we can make sure of. Number two, we can guarantee that we're going to teach you the things that you need to do to go ahead and change your career into this field. We can help you with your CV. We can help you with your cover letter. We can bring in experts who will talk about their experience in the industry. We can help you with your LinkedIn. We can help you with your GitHub. We can help you perfect your portfolio. We can do all those things.
And help you practice your interview skills.
As well. And the final thing we can guarantee, I suppose we can't really guarantee this, but I can tell you as of right now, there's a huge number of jobs and not enough people to fill them. So if you think that you'll be able to get up to speed, if you feel like you have an interest in coding, then I would highly recommend going on the course and pursuing a career in this. But there is no guarantee of a job. We have no qualms in saying that. We're very happy to be very upfront and honest about that. But we do guarantee that you'll be learning the most advanced skills and technologies that are designed specifically to help you get into this industry as a newcomer. So hopefully that answers your question. Marek has asked, what is the percentage of people who started the course that complete the course? That's a good question. I don't have
over 95%.
Over 95%. I mean, I wouldn't have live stats on that, but I think that's around about that. If someone is particularly struggling on the course, we've had a couple of students, for example, who have had maybe their jobs have changed. They have to put the course on hold for a while, so we extend that person's access. So we've yet to have a case where we've shut someone's access off. As such, it is 12 months access, but if we find that you're really struggling, we will work with you and try and help you as best we can. Let's see what else we have. Peter has asked, what about leading edge tech like VR and AI? So unfortunately, Peter, that is not covered in the course.
Outside our scope.
Outside our scope, a little bit. David has said, I'm currently doing the course at the moment. And it's brilliant, to be honest. I'm looking to move to Canada in 2 years. That's great. Starting as application support analyst. Oh, sorry, David. Your question is cut off for whatever reason. So we'll try and help you out if you just type that in again. So again, if this is something you're interested in, I would really strongly encourage you to sign up for one of those consultation calls with the learning people. They are really great people. They genuinely want to help you. So I'd really strongly encourage you, if it's something you're thinking about, to sign up for that call, and they will do their best to talk with you. So one of the questions we always get asked is, why would I do this versus doing a computer science degree? I think it's a really good question because I suppose the idea behind it is I have option A or I have option B. How do the two work? So what I usually say in terms of Code Institute versus a university is, the idea of the Code Institute course is to help you change career fast. As fast as we can possibly help you get there. So in the classroom, for example, we have a 12-week classroom course that actually brings you through these steps very, very quickly. In the online, we have more time, so you can take up to a year to do it. So that's the first thing. That's really the speed side of it. The second thing would be when you're doing a university degree. When you're using a university degree, the goal, sorry, someone was just outside the window and I completely lost my train of thought. Yoni, what was I saying? Can you remember?
I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
Wasn't sure where, you can't read my mind, Yoni, is that what you're saying?
I'm writing some software to deal with that.
Okay, I'm going to have to pick up that one a little later, I think. So if there's any further questions, I'm very happy to answer them. So just let me know in the chat if there's any other ones. Caroline has asked, Peter has jumped in. He said uni versus college. Colin has asked a couple of questions. Okay, people are reminding me of what I was saying. So college versus Code Institute. So that's what it was. So first of all was speed. Second of all was the information you're learning. When college courses are put together for coding, they're generally designed in the same way that other college courses are designed, which means big lectures, and it also comes to assignments as well. The nice thing about a Code Institute course versus a university course is we are purely focused on the coding. We are very much interested in getting you into the code as fast as possible, and giving you as much theory as you need to know to go out and create things. That's really the goal. With university, it's much more about learning the theoretical concepts, learning about algorithms, learning about things that are really important but not necessary to get a job. And Yoni, you have experience with this because you actually ended up working as Google as an engineer, but you don't have a computer science degree.
Yeah. So when I was 18, I started a university course on computer science. I did a year of that. University computer science is a theoretical field, which is kind of a subset of mathematics. So you learn lots of math. You learn to prove theorems about the abstract concept of problem solving. And that's nice. Parts of it are quite interesting. Parts of it are even relevant to programming, but small parts. The majority of what you would learn in university in computer science would have little bearing on your day-to-day work as a developer. Um, I would even say that some of it would hinder you in creating software because you might get stuck in trying to do the best possible thing, but just forget what your purpose was. At Google, in the teams I've worked at, I think about half of the engineers had a university degree in computer science, and others, another, let's say, 35% had university degrees in something else, physics, philosophy, lots of possible things. And another 15% perhaps didn't have a degree at all. And there wasn't really any difference between the skills of people. So this kind of work brings people with very different backgrounds, and all of them do it well. So it's up to you just to teach yourself to solve problems. That's the main thing. With a degree in computer science, you might choose to focus on the more theoretical aspects of programming, if that's something that interests you. If you're interested in the optimal ways of solving some problem, then that might be for you. But if you just care about making an impact in the real world using software, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend a degree.
Okay, great. So there's a question there from Colin saying, would you say you need to be living in a large city in the UK to get a good chance of getting into industry? And Ben actually had a great answer to that, which is there are more coding jobs in and around major cities. That is just the way of the world, whatever industry you're working in. But there are jobs everywhere, which I think is a good succinct answer on that one. Randall has an interesting question. Have you ever had a successful student from Italy? I'm asking this because in Italy, no experience is bad on your CV. So, Randall, what I can say is we actually had a student who came all the way from Italy for a classroom bootcamp, and he is now happily working away in Rome as a software developer. So yes is what I can say. We have had successful students from Italy. Greku has asked, is it possible to design a web app with this software suite which can interrogate in real time a live system with PLC to get some parameter and make some adjustments in his actuators? Greku, I'm going to say that is a question for a consultation call. That is a very specific kind of question.
Yeah, but the short answer is yes.
The short answer is yes from Yoni here. Carlo has asked a great question. And it's let me be a bit provocative. Why are you better than Udemy or Coursera? So what I would say is, Carlo, there's two big things that differentiate us. The first thing is the certification that you actually walk away with. So the fact that we are credit rated by a leading UK university is really important. It's great for employers. To see that, to understand that. The second thing I would say is when it comes to the learning, we're very much focused on the contextual learning. So it's very much about walking away with a portfolio that has the latest skills and technologies. So those would be the two main things I would say. The third thing I would say is that this course is specifically designed to help you change your career. And we've done everything we can, from the content you learn to the career stuff that we do at the end as well, is all focused on helping you change career. The other thing is for employers, courses for people who just want to learn, Coursera is fantastic. It's a great way to get access to lots of content for not a lot of money. For employers, though, it's hard for them to quantify what that learning means. So if they have a Coursera course, it's hard for them to say, well, they paid $20 for this or whatever it was. It's hard for them to understand the exact level you walked away with. So that's why having a certification from a university gives them some assurance as to the rigorosity of your learning,
right?
The rigor of your learning. And also the portfolio you walk away with. So it's the design of the course. It's specifically about changing your career to coding. So that's what I would say on that one. Thank you for that question, though.
Words about that.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So I'm not very familiar with Udemy. I think Udemy is about smaller pieces of content, short courses. I am familiar with Coursera. Coursera have good university level courses. Usually they're more theoretical, but they're quite good. The only problem is that on Coursera, you wouldn't have the sort of structure that you would have with us. to get what you get from us, you would need to choose, I suppose, 5 different courses on Coursera and do all of the exercises and create the projects. And I think they wouldn't usually support you in creating larger projects. They would just teach you the basics. And also with us, you get the mentors to help you throughout all of that. And as far as I know, no free course can offer you anything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. They might be able to offer some sort of support.
They have forums, right?
Forums, yes. Yeah. So you have forums for that. So there's a couple of other questions here. Mo has said, if you want to do computer science or engineering, having really good maths knowledge is recommended highly. I don't know. Yes. Is it,
if you're going to university?
If you're going to university, absolutely. If you want to do basic coding, subtraction, addition, multiplication, division.
Not even division.
Not even division.
No, multiplication is good.
Multiplication is good. So you don't have to be a maths expert. Just really addition, subtraction, and multiplication will get you through this course. If you want
decimal numbers.
If you want to do really advanced algorithms and stuff, then it's really good to have really good math and also do a computer science degree. But for a course like this, where you just want to become a junior developer, no, that's not necessary. Colin has asked, how's the course marked or graded? Colin, it's actually, it's marked based on your projects. So you submit your 3 projects once you complete the course, we grade them and we get them back to you within, I think it's 8 weeks, 12 weeks. So Clara has said, don't agree with people knocking uni courses. If your uni course isn't interesting you, change, you're on the wrong course. Clara, I completely agree.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, university is great. It's just not for everyone.
I learned a lot of stuff when I studied university. And after I quit my CS degree, I ended up doing another degree. I ended up with a degree in biology, which I'm very happy about. I learned tons of things, but it's not as applicable to my work in the software field as the things that I learned on the job. So if you're interested in the actual practical skills of creating software rather than the theory, then university is perhaps not the best place to get those skills.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Hamza has asked, what if, Hamza, you're asking a very specific question about finance. So that's definitely a consultation call question because I can't say I know the ins and outs of the finance options that Learning People actually offer. So I'm going to ask you to sign up for a strategy call for that, a consultation call. So Odette has asked, can this course lead into cybersecurity or more interesting aspects in the industry than just web development? Yoni, what do you think?
Yes, but not directly. So this course will teach you the basics of programming and the basics of how the web works with all of its parts, the front end, the back end, different kinds of databases and different APIs. And having those skills will definitely help you if you're looking to get into a cybersecurity career. But you will still need to change to a separate course to focus on that.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure I don't miss any questions here. Mo has said, I fear math. I think we've covered that. Rattle has said no previous. I don't think that's a full question. It's saying I've no previous experience in this field. Yeah, I think we've spoken about that. You don't have to have any previous experience to successfully complete this course. Colin has asked, if you do not achieve a pass grade on one of your 3 projects, can you resubmit and is there a cost?
Yes. Yes, you can resubmit. Yes, there is a cost. If I'm not mistaken, it's $250. Sorry, €250 to get all of your portfolio reassessed.
I can't remember that exactly. I tell you what, that's a very specific question. You can absolutely resubmit. Whether there's a fee or not, I can't remember for sure. So what I'm going to say is that is definitely a question for the consultation call. I'm just not 100% if that's the setup or not. So I'm not going to give you a definitive answer, but you can absolutely resubmit your projects. David has asked, would I be able to display this to employers in Toronto? Would they recognize this? There is no international standard of web development, but what they would certainly recognize is they would recognize the quality of your portfolio, which is what we would work on you there for sure. It is possible that they would understand what a level 6 diploma is as well. There's just no international system there. And there's a more specific question about being an application support analyst. And if that is a good stepping stone towards development. David, I would say that's definitely a good question to have on a consultation call. So I'd encourage you to sign up for one of those. There's a question here in regards to my domain name question about linking pages created in Dreamweaver and couldn't use it. do it. So I use blogger.com instead domain names. Here was my follow. I have no idea what that means.
So what is the question?
I actually don't understand. I may have missed the question. I think she ran out of text potentially. So I can see from the chat that we have hit all the questions we have. So what I'm going to suggest is for sure that everyone, if you are interested in learning more about this course, if you want to find out more about whether this would be a good fit for you, I'm really going to encourage you to sign up for that consultation call. So I'm just going to use this feature in the webinar software just to open up a tab in your browser. So if you would like to go ahead and sign up for that consultation call, I highly recommend to do it. I think it would be a really good use of your time. It's 20 or 30 minutes, and it could have a very positive impact on your life if you decided to go ahead with the course. So I think that is the end of the questions. So unless there's any further questions, we will say good night and thank you very much for coming along. I think I have covered everything you meant to cover. Yes, I think we have. So I'm seeing some thanks coming through. So I think the best thing to do is to say thank you very much for coming along. We really appreciate your time. We hope you got some value out of this evening, and hopefully we will speak with you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us.